Next question is from Alan Scott, who asks, Uncle Chael said judo is one of the least effective martial arts in MMA. Thoughts? Question mark.
Uncle Chael's right. Like, it's effective in terms of throws, but it's not effective in terms of, like, finishes. And, I mean, how often we see someone get thrown and knocked out on their head? Maybe a handful of times. You know, it's not, in terms of, like, in MMA, sure, it's great to get in the fight to the ground, but not a lot of judo players, really good judo players, are good at submissions. So getting them to the ground is great, but then finishing them. Now, the newer evolution of judo, they've started working a lot more submission attacks right off the throw. But you have to remember, if you throw someone and that's not an ippon, do you have like 25 seconds or something like that? I don't know what the exact. You have a certain amount of time on the ground to work a submission or work to a position, you know, to get the finish. But if you don't get it, then they stand you back up and they have you go again. But judo itself, up until just recently, just I would say probably 10 years ago, they found there was a big evolution of these guys attacking submissions. Once jiu-jitsu started playing such a factor in it, they would throw you and transition right to the submission. But in terms of, for MMA, if it's just the throwing portion of it, it's not effective in terms of finishing the fight. But it's good at getting the fight to the ground. It's harder to get them to the ground because there's nothing to grab. You know, Carl Parisian was phenomenal at it. He was great at getting he was great at getting the fight to the ground. But Carl also had a very good attack. He was also very good at attacking the jiu-jitsu position.
But what was he?
He was a judo player.
Oh, okay. Look at to sit there and tell me that, oh no, judo's not a good base for MMA. Bullshit.
That wasn't the question.
Bullshit.
That
Just
wasn't the
putting it out
question,
there.
John.
Really, what was the question?
Was one of the least effective, not a base. It was one of the least effective. If I'm going to choose kickboxing,
Is it least effective?
Yes.
Bullshit.
It's not the least. It's not. It's one of the. It says one of the least effectives. Yes, it is. It is
Really?
one of the most least
let's
effective.
see. Okay, how well did a girl named Ronda Rousey do with judo in MMA?
But didn't I say the submission part?
Wasn't that her base?
I said the submit. We're not talking about the base, John. We're talking about the least effective. And
okay,
I said a handful.
Was it least effective for her?
There has been a handful of judo players in the game. Okay, and not all of them have been successful. You've had 2 or 3 that have been good enough to be successful. And the ones that were successful were the ones that had jiu-jitsu backgrounds as well. That was my point. I just said that. I'm not arguing with you in terms
judo,
of I thought it was
judo
great,
and
but it's not as
jiu-jitsu are what?
Are what? Grappling.
They're the same. Let's just be honest about it. No. Okay. All right.
They're
Give me the history of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu there, Josh.
I very rarely see.
Give me the history of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. You're a black belt. Give me the history of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
So you're telling me that Hoist is a judo.
Give me the history.
You're telling me
of
Hoist is
Brazilian
a judo
Jiu-Jitsu.
black belt. You're telling me Hoist is a judo black belt. I never seen him throw a judo.
I didn't say he was a judo black belt. I said,
but you just said they were the same, John. You just said they were the same.
Jiu-Jitsu. I didn't say that. I said, give me the history of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Dave, play back the tape.
And you can't do it because you're sitting there talking about something. Look at Asai Maeda, who is the guy that taught Carlos Gracie. Okay, came from who?
Like
Jigaro Kano, who was what? The man who came up with judo from jiu-jitsu. Okay, Asai Maeda was the guy that taught the Gracies, and he was a judo player. That's what he was. Now, I'm not saying that the Gracies and Elio didn't change things a little bit, but judo and jiu-jitsu are very similar. The Olympics changed judo. They changed it into a throwing match. Instead of using newaza and using the ground and all the submission techniques are the same. They're the same damn thing. How can you sit there and say it's not one of the best bases? It's a great base.
This was never about a base. This was about the least effective in MMA. That was not the question. You can't change the question to fit your narrative, John.
I'm not changing to fit the narrative. You're sitting there saying that it's not effective. It is what fucking Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is to a point.
I understand that part of it all, but the people that come in, all the judo players that come in, You've had a handful, not even a handful. You've had 3 of them that were successful with judo in the sport. Kayla Harrison being number 4. But the rest of them all, no, the rest of them were not as effective. And Carl Parisian, sure, he was great at it, but he was not a Ronda Rousey level either in terms of his success in the sport. If you're going to say who was successful, it would just be her. No other judo player has been successful in the sport outside of her. How
can you say that Parisian was not successful? He ended up in a position to fight Matt Hughes for the welterweight title and was pulled based upon an injury, and things went downhill for him from there. But he was all the way at the top.
I understand what you're saying. I get it. We fought on the same cards a couple times. You know, he lost his second fight, I think, to GSP, I believe. Or no, sorry.
No, he lost to GSP.
He lost GSP, but there was another guy he lost to on the second card. Or no, it was the first guy he beat. Sorry, he beat the first guy and then he lost
Dave
GSP
Strasser.
the second time. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, you remember that one?
Well, we fought on the same card together both times. Yeah. No, I'm saying that sure but he wasn't the Ronda Rousey level. And my point is that if I'm going to choose
level.
What's that?
He didn't get to the championship level. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
but I just look and say, look, the techniques of judo and jiu-jitsu, they're the same techniques. When you talk about an armbar, it's an armbar. When you're talking about triangle choke, it's a triangle choke. They're all the same submission hold.
Okay.
Are they not?
But I will do this, is I will back you in the fact that the Olympics changed judo.
Yes.
So then therefore it's changed the effectiveness in the sport of MMA, because when they throw, the control on the ground is not the same as if
I agree.
It would be jiu-jitsu. So that I can back you on that point of it.
But you're seeing a change in judo where the ground is starting to come back.
I said that earlier. Thanks for repeating.
Good for you.
Thanks for repeating me.
All right, I'll stop arguing with you.
Oh.